barriers and build new bridges, which is one of the reasons why we're here. And that's why the theme of this year's Eloy Global Conference is Breaking Barriers, Building Bridges. And you've led one of Africa's most influential telecom brands, that's the Airtel Africa Foundation. From your experience, what are the biggest barriers that still limit women's participation in innovation and entrepreneurship? And how can leaders like yourself help break those barriers within organizations and communities?
I think there is a culture. The culture I refer to where in most communities, especially in Africa, you assume women are responsible for taking care of the home, responsible for raising kids. That's not true. I think God that says women should be the ones that should prepare food for the family, that should raise children. The children come from two individuals, the man and the woman. So why should it be the man and the woman should be the one taking care of the house? That's a cultural barrier that makes it difficult for women. In some parts of this country, unfortunately, people don't like women, girls who go to school. Education as another barrier. But if you educate someone, you remove some of the cultural narcissism. Therefore, unfortunately, it's just what it is in some parts of the country. There's also access to capital. Women simply don't have as much access to capital as men do. It's also unfortunate. But also the most important is the policy making. If you look at Nigeria, we have about 36 states plus Africa 37. We don't have a woman as a government in any of the 36 states. If you are not a government, if you're a policy maker, how do you influence policies? So women don't have seats where decisions have been made. I can keep counting, but once again, complaining is not what you try to do. What do you do despite this? That's the context that you find yourself. So within this context, what can we do differently? That's probably the answer that we need to figure out. And if you look at the corporate world, especially for multinational, what is being done now? When I was the CEO of Airtel Africa, part of my bonus depended on how many women in my C-suite. So I had additional incentive in finding women. Some men they can't find good women, but if it's tied to your bonus, you find the woman whatever you want. So I was able to find capable women. I'm not suggesting you sacrifice quality for gender, by the way. There are good women, just like there are good and bad men as well. So I'm not saying all women are bad or women are good. They're just good in every gender. So if there is sufficient incentive, men will find good women will find good women. That's what I'm advocating. How do you now create that incentive to make it worthwhile women to look for good women and for men to look for good women as well? Yeah.
Okay.
Did I miss out anything?
Yes, I thought you wanted to go straight into the things that can be done, the actionable steps.
Those are the things. I mean, affirmative action can be creating special, funds for women. I know the number of private equity firms. They cater only to women. If you're not a woman, you can't access the funding. There are legislations that make certain positions reserved for women. I'm sure the president said 30% should be for women in the house. So those are things you can do, but just affirming that yes, there's a disadvantage, it needs to be corrected. I've also mentioned how executive pay is now tied to how many women promoted to C-suite jobs.
Yes, just like you rightly said, recently there's a bill, I think it's still undergoing reading, for more representation of women in politics. And it's something that is encouraging, and I believe that if our country should take that step, we'd have more women, right? We'd have more women, and that's all we're clamoring for. Now let's even talk about women as economic powerhouses. And I know that Airtel Africa Foundation has done amazing work in education, digital literacy, and empowerment. But from your perspective, how do women's economic empowerment, financial and digital inclusion translate into measurable business and societal growth?
Okay, there are also textbook questions, but I'm going to answer them textbook-wise as well. There's a story I saw some time ago that suggests that there's about $300 billion worth of GDP that can be unlocked if women are empowered. That's about the GDP of Nigeria. That's very measurable. If you empower a lot more women in Africa, they can unlock another $300 billion of GDP. That's a tick. There's another report I've seen that suggests about 70% of the micro enterprises, they are owned by women. If you can support them to become SME, to move from micro to small and medium size, each one can employ 7 other individuals, mainly women. That's another measurable progress. So, and when women are empowered, because in this part of the world, they are responsible for raising children. An empowered woman is liberated from violence, from gender violence at home. If you're economically empowered, you can resist a violent spouse. And if you're able to resist a violent spouse, you're also able to provide for children's education. When children are educated, you are raising another generation of prosperous and individuals. So there are so many indices that suggest if you educate, even the poor that says if you educate a woman, you educate a village. That's in our local environment. So many things that suggest that raising women out of poverty, even when voices, it's very good for the economy, good for the community, and for everyone concerned.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for him. I like that you merged how private sector, government, and even development organizations can just work together for a more inclusive ecosystem of women and girls. But to wrap this up, I want us to go straight into call to action. And if every person in this room should take one action after this conference to advance women's economic empowerment and inclusion, what would you challenge them to do starting today?
Use your platform to raise up another woman, to lift up another woman. If everyone in this room does that, you can imagine how many women are going to be lifted up. And let me close by giving examples of 2 women. Just by coincidence, I read New York Times every day. I read about this woman called Dr. Awa Abi. Is anyone familiar with her? Okay, Dr. Awa is from Somalia. Somalia is an Islamic country where for some reason women are not given the right of passage. This woman, Dr. Awa, set up a clinic during the war in Somalia, taking care of women, people who had nowhere to go to. She ended up treating over 90, I put the figure down somewhere, over 90,000 displaced people. She treated herself and her 2 daughters, they are all women. Herself, 2 daughters, treated over 90,000 people in a war-torn country. And at some point, the militias came over to her. They asked her to surrender the hospital. She refused. She said, "What have you done for the country?" A woman refuses to surrender the hospital to militias in Somalia. I think eventually she was nominated for Nobel Peace Prize, but Somalia still remembers that. When I Googled her name, just came and there is a woman who did XYZ in Somalia. If I Google your name, what's going to come up? That's a question you need to answer. And there's another woman I used as an example during dinner yesterday. She was the Prime Minister of Finland, a lady called Ms. Marin. She was the youngest Prime Minister in 2019. I'm sure people are familiar with her. She had a baby while in office, so having the baby is not a barrier to non-government. She had a good time, she went to parties, she did so many things, and she was supported by many women as well when she had a crisis. How many women do you support during crisis? Do you support your own friends when they have crisis? So, again, to emphasize, use your platform to raise up other women. And if I Google your name, what do I see? That's my final.
That really is something. Please, a round of applause for Dr. Segub Ogunsanya, the chairman of Airtel Africa Foundation. Ask your neighbor, if I Google your name, what will I find? Are you really for women supporting women, or you just say it and you don't do? Ask your neighbor. Because most people just say it and they don't do it. Thank you so much. Please, another round of applause for him. This was really insightful. Thank you. Please come back for pictures. Just a quick one with Dr. Tewa. Yes, please.